I've noticed the drama that I add to my life, my mental life, when I am leaning into that emotional resistance. And I have been observing, if I want different change, I have to do things differently, right? If I want my life to be different, if I want to feel different, if I want to be treated differently, at the end of the day, I do not need to read another book about it. I need to be held accountable to taking different action. So I told a client that I think she needed to break up with her therapist. And we were walking along a path at the cottage, and I just could see very, very clearly the pattern. I could see what was happening, and I couldn't unsee it anymore. As women, when you are a high performer, the first thing you do when shit goes south is you try to patch. You try to patch and control. You try to get clarity. You try to acquire more information. And, the ability to do so is a gift. But there comes a time and a place when you're over intellectualizing and you are actually trying to dig for problems. And you are trying to, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are trying to convince yourself that you are broken, that there's something wrong with you. And that if you keep digging and digging and digging and digging, and if you acquire more information, if you just had the secret, if you just had the know-how, one more conversation, one more session, then everything would work itself out. This is the trap that I see a lot of very smart, sophisticated, middle-aged women get in. Because when shit goes south and you've been chugging along in your life, you have been checking the boxes. You did the things you were supposed to do. You got the grades, you read the books, you took the tests, and you check, and you're like, okay, yep, I am the definition of success. I'm doing what is required. Great, boom, 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 right? And then you are gifted this child that triggers every wound inside of you. You are gifted a partner that triggers every wound inside of you. Something happens, maybe a health crisis, maybe a career transition. Something happens that gets your attention. And the first thing you're going to do is go out there and try to solve it. You're going to go to the doctors. You're going to go to the pediatricians. You are going to the podcasts. You are going to read the books. You are going to buy all of the low-level information, $100 products here and there, subscriptions, everything. Just enough that makes you comfortable, right? You don't want to jump into the deep end because that would be too emotionally uncomfortable. But you're going to arrive on a path at the time. You're going to arrive on your path. And at one point, there's going to be a fork in the road. And there's going to be something inside of you that's going to be like, I am done feeling this way. And in order to get to the other side of a newness, you're going to have to try something new. This is where I come in. This is so emotionally uncomfortable, so challenging for people, because I am asking you to take different action to what I call become a buffalo. People often ask me, Heather, your next book needs to be on how to become a buffalo. And I was just sitting with today's topic of choice, and I thought, let's talk about maybe a conversation I had with somebody that scares the shit out of them, that's really emotionally uncomfortable, but also what I've been observing in myself lately and how we continuously, me as a human as well, keep ourselves safe in order to not create freedom. Now, your brain is designed perfectly, but your brain is designed to keep you alive. And so it is going to fight like hell to keep you alive, but it is not here to help you thrive. And so I watch this with my clients over and over and over again because my one thing that I ask them is, how do you want to feel? And there's a whole framework and a process that we go through to help you get clarity on that and then to reverse engineer that. But you get to a point where you realize that this loneliness that you feel is because you are living a freedom-based life, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and you are doing what's required to live financially in alignment with how you want to feel. And when you do that, it gets really scary, really uncomfortable, because you begin to think differently than most people, and you begin to take different action than most people. A few years ago, people started making buying decisions differently. And I watched the online space shift and pivot. And to be honest, it almost felt like watching performers take their mask off and be like, like this is a different act. Like, what am I supposed to do? But here's the interesting part. When you are honest and you're not lying and you're not performative, you don't have to pivot. But I'm going to tell you what it did to me. When you have any ounce of doubt inside of you, and the ounce of doubt that I have had in the past, I wouldn't say so much anymore, but in the past is I am not a marketer. I did not grow my business through a marketing lens. I grew it from a passion to serve. But the challenge is, as you continuously invest in yourself, you are a marketer and you are a salesperson. But when you are selling with integrity, like true integrity, because you want people to change their lives, that is ethical. And what has happened out there in the world is people have lost trust. But more importantly, which is so sad, is they've lost trust within themselves because they never had it in the first place. I'm going to repeat that again. They lost trust with themselves because they never had it in the first place. What I realized over and over and over again is when someone is really here to be of service, to truly support you, they meet you where they're at. Whether that is you as a parent meeting your child and meeting them where they're at, whether it's having them sit there in their anger, in their overwhelm, in their frustration, holding it, being of highest service to the human in front of you. Every day, I am talking to women about big shit. Big shit. It's in my messages, it's in my DMs. And I'm holding big emotions for these women who are creating massive shifts in their lives. And it is scary as shit for them because they're navigating, who am I? Who am I if I'm not seeking my validation from parenting? Who am I if I actually go after what I want? Who am I if I give myself permission to feel alive and aligned and strong? Who am I? And when I said that to the client of, I think it's time, you need to just create space from this therapist. Part of that was so that she could see how far she has come. She could see how much she has grown. She could see how much she did trust herself and that she was creating a codependency through scarcity. She was creating codependency through scarcity because she was afraid that if I let go, I'm going to have to feel something. And there's this fine line between having too much information. Something else that I have been implementing and observing is We call them sprints in my world, like in my coaching world and my clients, I'll bring them through sprints. And so within 4 to 6 weeks, we have one focus goal, and every week is you're taking the emotionally uncomfortable action to like lean in and go through, right? So you're going through the resistance, you're going through the storm, and this is like you're becoming the buffalo. You're headed into the storm, you're doing the emotionally uncomfortable work. And what I often notice and what I've seen is, number one, people do not know how to make goals. They make incredibly unrealistic goals, most likely so that they don't have to hit those goals. Number two is when they do get clarity on a bite-sized goal, they're like, oh, that's too easy. I need to make this like really hard for myself. And I'm like, it is going to be really hard because, making $1, asking for the sale, having that emotionally uncomfortable conversation with your husband, putting that boundary up and holding it with your son is going to be incredibly emotionally uncomfortable. But reading another parenting book or sending your child to therapy or going to therapy is your comfort zone. You have to be ready to get emotionally uncomfortable. You have to be ready to go through the storm. And so oftentimes when people are in my world, they're like, Heather, I don't get it. Like, I'm scared, I'm terrified, I'm this, and this. But I'm like, you can't even see how much you are living in fear. So I want to share a personal story with you. There's so much transition in my life right now. Finally, if you're watching this on YouTube, my office is somewhat put together. I actually told my team that I was only going to be doing solo podcasts, audio only, because I absolutely detest and despise video. And I was like, Heather, lean in, become a buffalo, get your shit together. You have all of the equipment. You just need to do it. And lately I have been chipping away on my to-do list of like my I don't want to do this shit list, what I would call profit rule, where you're constantly leaning in to this emotional discomfort. Like I'm doing repetitions until failure. And I'm just like, I don't give a shit anymore. I don't care about rejection. I don't care about what people think. Like, I'm just like, I am here for the journey. I am here for the game. And I've noticed the drama that I add to my life, my mental life, when I am leaning into that emotional resistance. And I have been observing, if I want different change, I have to do things differently, right? If I want my life to be different, if I want to feel different, if I want to be treated differently, at the end of the day, I do not need to read another book about it. I need to be held accountable to taking different action. That's it. I need to be held accountable to taking different action. And this is where I find the body not only keeps score, but can be incredibly manipulative, like being completely gaslit by my own body, okay? But it comes back to deep self-trust. Yesterday, I made a decision, and I had some travel coming up. I had 3 trips that I canceled. The first trip was canceled because the linchpin or the catalyst of that was I was supposed to go to visit my son on the other side of Canada, and he decides he is not going to be there this summer. And I thought, well, shit, if he's not going to be there, then I'm not going to go there a week in advance to an event. And then I was like, you know what? It got me thinking. And I returned home to myself and I asked myself, is this trip a fuck yes? And the answer was no. The trip was not a fuck yes. The only reason why I was going was because I wanted to visit my son. And now that he's going to be somewhere else, I'm just not going. So, side note, as parents, always have cancellation insurance on your flights when children are involved. And it just was this catalyst for Heather. based on your goals, both personally and professionally, what actions do you need to take consistently? I am very clear on the actions that I need to take, but pivoting and having discernment and agency and self-respect and deep, deep, deep self-respect and self-trust has only come from the amount of time I have spent with myself. And sometimes that is in the wee morning where I'm writing for 5 minutes in my journal. Sometimes that is, all of the countless hours that I have spent in my pain. And inside of those moments, I have return home to myself to know the difference between fear versus fact. Fear versus fact. And every time I take emotionally uncomfortable action, I gain strength towards deeply trusting myself, towards making myself proud. And it was really hard to cancel those trips, mainly because, some people don't even know that I'm not going on the business trip that I was going to be on. Then I had another trip attached to that, a girls' trip. And I'm like, my body can't handle this. My body is screaming at me right now. And she's saying, Heather, you are a high performer. You have been through a lot of shit in your life physically. And in the year of 2026, you've taken some big, big, big leaps. For 3 months, you weren't even living in the same country. And then you returned home and then you moved homes. You lost your dog. Apparently that's going to make me cry. Senior dog that you got right after chemo. And honestly, I feel like there's a lot of completion in my life right now. And there was this moment of like, do not self-abandon. Do not self-abandon. You know the answer, just honor the answer. It's a no. It's a no. And then there was another trip that I really, really, really wanted to go on this fall. Like really badly wanted to go on. But I wanted it to be a celebratory trip. And the reality is I haven't hit the goal yet. And a part of me, it was not self-punishment. A part of me was I would probably have more anxiety going on the trip of what would be required when I returned. And I thought, you know what? Sometimes we make a goal. Sometimes we reach for the stars, land on the moon. And what is required of you to hit that goal or who you need to become takes more time than you thought it was going to. And I'm really excited to go on this trip next year at that time. But getting to that point, and I mean, I read human behavior for a living, and people were telling me, like even people on my team, they're like, I can tell something's off. This isn't a fuck yes for you. And I started to like take other things off of my plate, like naturally. And I was watching my own behavior, like something is changing here. Something is changing. Like I was saying no to things. I was pushing things away. I couldn't get out of bed on time. And again, yes, I completely understand. We just moved homes. And actually somebody said to me the other day, you moved a month ago. Like, aren't you settled in? And I was like, well, sir, I don't think you realize it's not just the physical movement. We also have mental and emotional and spiritual. And when you create that like silent space with yourself and you know how to have that discerning voice, you know how to listen. And I have sharpened the muscles of listening to myself, and I know myself intimately, and I know what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what works for me, what doesn't work for me. And it's about like, the wavering of like leaning in, and then leaning out, leaning out, leaning out. And after, I get asked a lot about decision making. They're like, what if I'm making the right decision? What if I'm making the wrong decision? Like, how do I know if I'm making the decision? And I'm like, you just need to move the energy. You need to move the energy. You need to take action and you need to commit. And so I was like, Heather, this is annoying. You are in indecision and you don't do well in indecision because you know a decision is not being made when you're in indecision and you're not moving energy. You're just sitting in stagnant pool energy. And it's just like water, right? So if you have a puddle or a pond that is not in movement, you know disease and bacteria is going to grow. That is what's going to happen in your life if you do not move. Something is going to explode in your life. But when energy is in motion and energy flows, it is healthy, it is vibrant, it is healing. And so I just get moving. I just take action. And so I thought, interesting. What I found really fascinating was I made those decisions. They were really hard for me, but I was pre-contemplating, like letting go of these trips. And, people had a little bit of resistance and I could get out of bed this morning with ease. I had more energy getting out of bed this morning. And so when I talk about invisible mental load, invisible energetic load, that's what I mean. That there are unmade decisions inside of you. Like you know what they are. You are not making these tiny, tiny, tiny decisions, these intuitive decisions that you know that nobody will ever make for you. Like nobody can ever make these decisions for you. I could have gone on all of these trips. My family was set up for me to go away on these trips. My husband didn't give a shit. And in my heart of hearts, I would have known that I chose to go on those, but I abandoned something else. And it wasn't about sacrifice. It was that it wasn't 100% in alignment with where I am right now. And I needed to get radically honest with myself that if it was a fuck yes, it would be all in. And I know that one trip that I really, really wanted to go on is going to be a fuck yes for me. And when it is, it's going to be that much sweeter because a goal has been achieved and we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. Getting to that point of being able, and this is like a buffalo scale, getting to that point where you can make a decision like that requires a lot. Like you can't be a people pleaser. And you have to be able to master and emotionally regulate your fear, your guilt, your shame, your overwhelm. You have to be able to master your mind and master your belief systems and clearly understand what gives me energy and what doesn't give me energy. And how can I slightly pivot right now in this moment to get more in alignment with how I want to feel on the other side of resistance? Because I'm telling you right now, making those decisions, although I feel like it made my load lighter and I had instantly more energy, the work that I have to do is incredibly emotionally uncomfortable. And I want to circle back to the beginning of this conversation because that's the whole point of this podcast, which was telling somebody or suggesting, it's always a suggestion. I'm just here as people's guides. I tell you, listen, yes, my background is in social work and I'm a former therapist. But the reason why I call myself a coach and not a therapist is because you don't go to a dentist for a broken leg. You don't go to a dentist for a broken leg. And what I mean by that is there's a time and a place for therapy and there's a time and a place for coaching. And you and only you will know when you need what, why, and when you're complete. I tell people all the time, if you are being an ethical healthcare provider, I've told people you're complete here. I feel that you are complete. Like we are complete in our cycle together. And they're like, but Heather, you're so like, you've helped me, you've supported me. And I've gotten really honest with people. I said, you're not done yet, but I feel you're running away, or maybe you're lying to me. You're not telling me something. I feel like you're probably upper limiting yourself. And I often tell people I can see your next level. I can see the next level for you, the next drop in. But I know I'm an ethical person, but you have to deeply, deeply, deeply trust yourself. And there's something that happens in midlife because you have this time, this wisdom, this life experience, and whatever has been like piled on top of you. So if it's, I can't, like whatever stories you're holding, I can't trust people. I can't depend on people. I've been strong, independent. You have to be careful because your brain is designed to keep you safe. It's not designed to help you thrive. And so if you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your brain keeping you in a chronic survival state, you will look for why you're broken. You will look for the next thing you need to fix. You will look for the next book that you need to purchase, the next freebie that you need to download, the next, low tier membership that you need to be in that you won't join or you won't get value out of. But if you are ready to surrender, if you are ready to surrender and to change your identity and to grow and to become and to live in alignment with what is inside of you, live in alignment with your truth, live in alignment with that peace and part of you that's like, I want more. I want more. I want more. I want it so fucking bad. I can taste it and I want more. Then you need to feed that part of you. And when you begin to feed that part of yourself, you will be absolutely fucking terrified because you won't know how to solve that problem on the first try. You won't know where to look first. You will not know how to put your soul on the calendar. And I'm telling you right now, it is fucking terrifying. So, who do you need to break up with? Who do you need space from? Who do you need to maybe hang out with more? I tell people all the time, it's not personal. I know what I represent. And sometimes you need space. Sometimes you need to mute. Sometimes you need to unfollow. And honestly, sometimes you need to lean in. Sometimes you need to lean in. Sometimes you need to lean into the emotional discomfort of, this person triggers me. This person, they make me jealous. They got something that I want. Learn from those people. Touch those parts of yourself that you don't think that you're valuable enough, that you don't think you're qualified. And oftentimes when I say people will tell me they can't afford something. And I'm like, what are you subscribed to that you're currently paying for? Sometimes it's therapy. Sometimes it's a subscription. Sometimes it's Amazon. Sometimes it's just bullshit that you don't want to get rid of because you feel bad, but there's no value in it for you. And then when you add up all of that money, if you just invested your time and your energy and your financial resource in shit that's actually going to move the needle for you, that makes you really uncomfortable, you are going to get to the other side so much faster. So much faster. That's it. So much faster. You are going to buy back your time, buy back your energy, live, work, play, and parent in alignment with how you want to feel. You're going to be a fucking badass. I never told you not to go to therapy. I'm a huge advocate of therapy. And if you've never been, you need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy. But there is a time and a place where you need to stop intellectualizing your feelings and you need to learn to fucking feel them and take action anyways. And when you do, it will be emotionally uncomfortable. and you will become a fucking buffalo. All right. Hopefully this was supportive. And if it was, and you want to become a buffalo and you want to reclaim your time and energy, let's do a one-on-one time and energy audit. This is the first place we walk everybody through. And whether you are building a company and you want to have more time freedom, you want to grow and scale, whether you are yelling at home, whether you feel like you're failing as a mother, whether you feel a discomfort in your relationship, you can tell you're hiding something feels off. Let's figure out where your energy leaks are. So head on over to Heather Chauvin, CHAUV as in Victor, IN.com/audit, AUDIT, and use the code podcast197. We give you like a 10-page report and a one-on-one call. And that report is going to show you exactly where your energy leaks are, where you need to focus first, what you need to start doing more of, what you need to do less of. You got one precious life. Let's live it.